because there's no gay characters in Crybaby.
I know, but there's something about like your movies, the embracing of camp, the embracing of tacky, the just all out, just queer counterculture nature. Do you ever feel a responsibility for lifting the voice of the counterculture?
Well, I'm proud of it when people say that, I made them feel okay about themselves. And I wrote a whole book called Role Models about the people that did that for me. Yeah. Everybody needs some bad influence they can look up to.
Keep listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Thursday morning, progressives and all the rest. Welcome to the April 30th, 2026 edition of Choose Views. There he is. There's a camera. 773-763-9278. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube. We're also broadcasting at AM 950 in Minnesota. Hey, Minnesota. Hey, Minneapolis. What's going on, guys? AM 950 in Minneapolis, AM 1520 and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. Email me at richard@WCPT820.com and follow me on all of the socials. Posted a lot of stuff yesterday, so check them all out. X, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Spoutable, Substack, Threads, Blue Sky. Yeah, and even on my YouTube spot. So, yeah, just there you go. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio. There you can get, of course, Choose Views, featured interviews, and all the rest. Joan Esposito, the legendary Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, and the absolutely wonderful driving and home lady. Her name is Patty Vasquez. Make sure you check out both of their shows. And, of course, It's the Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath and Out Chicago and our other shows, all of our other broadcasts, our recorded shows and all that. And by the way, I'm going to be sitting in today, later on today, for Jody Hamilton on the Politics Bar. So there you go, double trouble today, or two-a-days, as the athletes call them. But make your way over to heartlandsignal.com. We will probably play a clip in a little bit from Heartland, but I want to tell you about a couple things you want to check out. And this is one of the clips we may get to, we may not, but this is a good one. This is from the Pennsylvania House Speaker, Ms. McClinton, out of Philly, tells the Republicans that there's no place for 253 politicians to sit in a woman's health care, to sit in on a woman's health care decision. It's a great clip. She basically says there's only one extra chair in the visit with the doctor, in the doctor's medical office. So it's a great clip. We may get to it. If we don't, you guys should check it out. And also, this is another one that I just thought was brilliant. Pennsylvania State Representative Benham from Allegheny County, a Democrat, goes after Republicans who use the Bible to attack gay and trans people, but won't say a word about women and children hurt by Jeffrey Epstein. So some real powerful work, as always, coming from our folks over in from our team here at our Heartland Signal digital platform. So make sure you are checking that out. Busy day today, and so I want to kind of keep it moving along and not get stuck in my own brain. But on today's show, Maya MacGuineas will be with us. She is one of those voices that we talk about all the time when it comes to knowing how to help us work a little bit better. She's president of the bipartisan committee for a responsible federal budget. So we're going to be talking about the federal budget, Social Security, and its administration, the fixes there. That's in the 6:30 hour. So she'll be with us shortly. And then in studio with us will be two folks that have been with us before, but not together or at the same time. Doctors Anthony Douglas, who is a trauma surgeon at the University of Chicago Hospital and the lead organizer of the Responsibility in Firearms Legislation, also known as RIFL, the RIFL Act here in Illinois. And also Dr. Thomas Fisher. If you guys remember, he's a former candidate for Congress in the 8th District in Illinois, and he's also an emergency medicine physician at the University of Chicago. So we've got two great physicians that are going to talk with us this morning about Medicare, Medicaid, public safety, and all the rest. And I'm sure they're going to have some conversations about budget on the heels of talking with Maya MacGuineas about the federal budget. So looking forward to having those two gentlemen with us in studio. I know I can feel a sneeze coming on, so I'm just letting you guys know in advance. I'm trying to work it out, try to send it over here so it doesn't attack me, but it's trying really hard to sneak in. So if you hear that, I'm doing everything I can to break it up so that it doesn't come flying in. But that's what's happening on today's show. Today's question, let me get right to it, because a lot of people have said to me, Chew, you're too hard on Chuck Schumer and Jeffries. Or, you say things about them, but you won't say. Listen, I want them both to succeed. You know who I want to fail? Donald Trump. I want Donald Trump to fail because he's not trying. He is attacking and tearing down our country. He's not building us up and bringing us together. It's not happening. MAGA, GOP trolls, all the rest of you, moderate whatevers. You can fool yourself into thinking that, but he's not. His poll numbers indicate that right now. They're sub 35. They're in the low 30s. So when we take back the House, and God willing, we take back the Senate, this is the question I want to get answers from you guys on, and we'll try to get your calls if you make them, given that we've got three guests, and we'll probably, when Doctors Thomas and Fisher are on, we may take some calls at that time on topic in terms of what they're talking about medical concerns and such, and safety and the rest. So feel free to call us during that time. I'm sure the doctors will be willing to answer some of your questions, or I'll answer them and we'll get their commentary as well. But don't hesitate to call us on topic. You're not going to be talking about craziness, but you know what I'm saying. But this is the question of the day. Once Dems take back the House and the Senate, who is or who are your choices for Speaker of the House and Senate Majority Leader? You can text us your thoughts. You can email them to us. You can call. And if we can't get your call on, then Mike and Henry can grab your who you think it is, and we'll say it on the air. Or you can go to our Facebook page and let us know there. Leave your comments. But we would like to hear from you. This isn't something we're going to talk about again. This won't go away. This is not a one-off. But right now, once them take back the House and God willing take back the Senate, who would you like to see as your Speaker and Majority Leader? And I'm not picking or leaning in a direction. I wanted to ask this question because oftentimes people will say, Richard, you're too hard on Jeffries and Schumer. Well, I'm not too hard on them. I think what I'm trying to do is encourage them, inspire them, push them to fight as hard as they can. And I'm not saying that they're not. Never said that. Anybody that thinks that I have, you're wrong. But to that end, who would you like to see? Maybe it's the same. Maybe it's a difference. But let us know what you think in that space. And, of course, the number is 773-763-9278. All right. One of the things that came up this weekend, of course, on the heels of the attack at the White House Correspondents' Dinner was this. I mean, it already scripted. I don't know if that was staged in terms of the attack or not. But what I do know is that the scripting behind getting a ballroom was pretty damn quick. Okay, so here's where I want to go with this. First of all, a White House ballroom is not the place to hold a White House Correspondents' Dinner in the first place, because the White House Correspondents Association is not beholden to the White House. It's part of their name, but it's nothing to do with they're part of the White House. They work there. They have their coffee and their tea in the White House cafeteria. That's not how it rolls. Okay, so let's just set this real quickly. Because I want to talk about costs a little bit real quickly. I know that when we have Maya on, we may get into some other issues. But regarding the ballroom, let me just put this out here. Here's some simple math that I did. If a ballroom is necessary to have a correspondence dinner as it relates to what they try to justify and say it's about security and protecting, which is BS. First of all, capacity, not big enough. That's garbage. But let's just use the math as it relates to security. This is where the government failed itself. Just check this out. That hotel where the correspondence dinner was held, if there were truly a concern that they wanted to manage with regard to safety for the president and all of the rest of the people that are part of the succession of the presidency, the cabinet that was there, and all the guests, if they wanted to actually take a proactive position, this is what they could have done. For $387,000, roughly, so let's call it $400,000 or even $500,000, they could have bought out the hotel and all of the rooms in that hotel for $400,000, $500,000 for one night, for one day, bought the hotel out and shut it down. Period. No guest at all. And made it a fortress for the day. So starting Friday, after checkout, there would be no more check-ins at the hotel until Sunday. So a full day. But the government, our tax dollars, if Trump is trying to say that we need a safer, more secure place, i.e. the ballroom, they could have spent $500,000 and bought the hotel out for one day. And I'm giving you rough numbers. I know it doesn't get into all the other, ancillary costs of the food. I get that. I'm just saying the room night charge, on average, about $350 a night there. 1,107 rooms. Would have cost $400,000 in simple math. And secured the place. No one would have been able to check in. No guest. Safety, right? Safety. Simple math. Far less expensive than using taxpayer dollars or donor dollars or whatever for a damn ballroom. Okay? So we have to think sometimes about when they say something, we got to push the reality. $500,000. By comparison, I know it's a longer period of time, but a trip to Scotland for Donald to play Trump golf cost taxpayers $9.7 million. For what? For his fat behind to go play golf. And it is a fat behind. So I'm not making a derogatory statement. And I'm not. So do what you got to do, Todd Blanche. I mean, objectively, his derriere is expansive. Let's call it that. And Melania, if you got a problem with that, don't get me started. Because if you want to have a battle with me on what we're going to say about each other, I welcome it, but she won't do that. She'll hide behind Donnie because of the expansiveness. I'm being a little snarky for a reason. It's a waste of our money. $500,000 to secure the entire hotel for a day plus. So let's bump it up to $750. But Donald can take a golf trip because that's all it was, all it is. When he goes to Scotland, it's about him playing golf. He never not plays golf when he goes there. You guys follow me? We have to be the ones sometimes to think a little bit harder on these things and sometimes put some real numbers to the conversation. Let's take a quick break. Guys, the number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820, WARR 1520 AM, and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. And now, our good friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
We got out of Washington State, and I think a week after, state went on lockdown for COVID.
So then when we transitioned to Texas, it was very much so like, what are we going to do now?
Operation Homefront has allowed our family to make something of ourselves again in the world after military.
It's completely changed the way our life is. It took us from a hopeless situation, and now we're homeowners. We have a savings account. I'm the first one to own a home out of my siblings.
Visit OperationHomefront.org to learn more.
At this very moment, Doctors Without Borders is on the ground in communities around the world, delivering life-saving medical care where it's needed most. Our teams are bandaging war-wounded patients caught in the crossfire in Sudan, providing clean drinking water in Haiti, and performing emergency C-sections in Yemen. Doctors Without Borders teams are in over 70 countries worldwide, bringing patients from sick to recovering, from emergency to aid, from crisis to care. This life-saving work is made possible by our movement of supporters, people like you who help our patients even when they're half a world away. At Doctors Without Borders, we won't stop working to bring our patients and their communities from crisis to care.
Don't let biased algorithms or degree screens or exclusive professional networks or stereotypes. Don't let anything keep you from discovering the half of the workforce who are stars. Workers skilled through alternative routes rather than a bachelor's degree. It's time to tear the paper ceiling and see the stars beyond it. Find out how you can make stars part of your talent strategy at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Debunking the lies your uncle saw on Facebook. It's Chew's Views with Richard Chew.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. If you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chew. This is Chew's Views on WCPT and all other great places. WARR down in Warren County and AM 950 up in Minnesota. You know, there you go. We're spreading our message. Okay, another quick cost comparison item, and then we'll get to another hot topic that we'll try to we won't have a lot of time to spend on. $25 billion on Operation Epic Fury, according to the House Armed Services Committee on Wednesday, said Defense Secretary Jules Hurst said that's the number. We're spending about $25 billion. The American Center for Progress previously estimated that at the end of March that the war had already cost $25 billion. So we know the number's higher based on another 3 weeks of having gone by. So here's some quick comparison. For reference, that group said that amount could cover Medicare for 3.1 million people for a whole year, not a war of 6 to 8 weeks, or provide free school lunches for 29,614,000 children, or house 3.1 million people in Section 8 housing. Let that resonate for a minute. I'll keep these numbers close if y'all want to talk about them. But that's a failure. This administration is a failure, guys. There's no question about it. They're a flat-out failure. And if we don't have enough to vote about when it comes to the midterms, that right there should be enough. That's a wasteful spending. And people have died as a result of that. So let's talk about the midterms. You guys have heard by now what happened with the Supreme Court. And I'm going to try to cover this as quickly as I can, but I'm going to play one quick clip. I don't know. Maybe we'll hold off on the clips. Let me just talk through this because I know that we're going to run out of time if we play the clips. The Supreme Court Republicans basically made America safe for white Republicans. That's what happened. That are running for office. Those aren't my words. I won't take. I mean, those come from Robert Reich. So what happened was the Supreme Court, the 6 Republicans all voted in favor, and the 3 Democratic appointees all voted opposed to the Supreme Court Louisiana versus Calais, significantly weakening the Voting Rights Act. This doesn't just affect people of color, guys. It affects everybody. Because if you're not a black person or a Hispanic person in this country, you know someone that is. And so there you go. Henry's got the double whammy with me and Mike Mercado. But that being said, this affects all of us. And I could very easily make it about the clear racial gerrymandering that's taking place. And now that Louisiana striking down this voting map, this is basically what it's done. It's opened the door for other states to redraw maps and dilute voting for minority voters, if you will. And in the greater scheme of things, what it's done, and I want to talk about something that a lot of people may not be anticipating, but I thought about this and I said, I think this is where we're potentially headed. We could fight this all day long, and we could be upset about it and scream and yell, and we should, because immediately after this, they waited. I knew it was coming, but I wanted to see. Florida Republicans, who controlled the legislature in Florida, they, right after the Supreme Court decision, they voted to pass DeSantis's redrawn congressional map. That wasn't an accident. They waited until the Supreme Court cleared the path in Louisiana, and then shortly thereafter, they held their vote. Boom. So obviously what that means is the Republicans are trying to really damn hard, even the Supreme Court, to cook the books because they know that they're going to get their behinds handed to them in the midterms. And they're trying to change the state legislature's ability, or let me rephrase that. They're trying to change an individual's ability to file complaints against the redrawing in a particular state. It basically, this is weakening Section 2, and I said this months ago, of the Voting Rights Act. And this is the tip of the iceberg. But what we have to do is fight hard and make sure that we show up and vote. And one of the clips we were going to play was from Minnesota State Representative Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman on the importance of voting and not taking it for granted. This means we have to work harder. Guys, we already know that the Supreme Court, 6 of the members of the Supreme Court are not really fighting for what's right for the country. They're fighting for their own preservation. So I'm just trying to get through this because we're short on time, but that's not a bad thing. And I won't talk too much. What Hillary Clinton told a whole bunch of people throughout the world that this was going to happen. A lot of people didn't believe it because they were too damn concerned about her emails. And yet here we are. This affects all of us, guys. You snatch it from people of color, you make it more difficult. The next thing you know, it's going to be people whose parents don't have they'll come up with some garbage. I promise you that. So it's on us to fight back on this, guys. It just is. I mean, I can hate on the Supreme Court all day long, and I believe me, the 6 of them, I have major issue and drama with them. But this is the other thing that is a concern that a lot of people are not talking about enough, and that is the appointment process and the retiring. I'm going to make a prediction. I could be way wrong about this. I think that Thomas and Alito are going to both retire this year. And it's going to give Trump the ability to nominate two more that are going to be lifetime appointees that are going to be there for a generation. That's what I think is going to happen. I'm going to make that prediction now. I hope I'm wrong. But this is even more puts more weight on why we have to take back the Senate for, in terms of going forward, why that's important. And we can't have the yo-yo back and forth, every midterm and the general, taking back the House. It seems like that's going to happen. Taking back the Senate on a federal level is critically important. But it goes back to something I've been saying for 2+ years. Senate, White House, Senate, House of Representatives, and state legislatures and governors' mansions. We have to stay actively involved, guys. I know it's a lot of work. I know it's hard to hear. I know that we are tired. Believe me, I get that. But this is what's happening. Trump, I believe Alito and Thomas are going to retire. I could be wrong. But if they do, Trump's going to appoint potentially 2 more heavily radicalized MAGA-esque Supreme Court judges. So prepare yourselves for that coming. And I hope that everybody is paying attention and ready to deal with that. Why is the Supreme Court ruling like this? Not because of the letter of the law. I believe they're ruling this way because they want to see a dilution of Democratic voters and independent voters. Because they know, I believe, that when the House is taken back by the Democrats and potentially the Senate, that there's going to be hearings. John Roberts is going to have to talk about that $20 million that he may not have properly disclosed. And there's going to be some Supreme Court justices brought into congressional hearings. And I think that they are ceding the ground to protect themselves from that by trying to dilute the voting as best they can with these types of rulings. That's my opinion, based on things that I've read, that I think is going to happen and why this is happening, why they're ruling the way that they are. So there you go. We're going to take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. And now, AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. And when we come back, we'll be talking with Maya MacGuineas, the president of the Bipartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. We'll be right back. Hey, progressives, it's Richard Chu, host of Choose Views weekdays 6 to 8 a.m. Central. We're all anxious for the 2026 midterm election to arrive so we can restore some sanity and much-needed oversight to our government. In fact, it's the most important midterm election in American history, and Choose Views will be in the thick of it, bringing you candidate interviews on a regular basis. I'll be talking to Democratic Party hopefuls running for House and Senate at the federal and state level, as well as candidates for governor and other state and local offices.
I am in love with our ability to fight for our rights, to fight for our future, to fight for our freedoms, to fight as our ancestors fought. It's just our moment. This is just our time to stand up and to speak up. We can't give up on this.
If you miss any of the interviews live, you'll be able to find them all on WCPT's candidate interviews page at heartlandsignal.com/candidates. That's Choose Views weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. on WCPT, Chicago's progressive talk for 20 years.
As farmers and ranchers, stewardship of the land comes naturally. Your work keeps our water clean, improves the soil, and enhances wildlife habitat. It also provides countless benefits, not just for you and your family, but for millions of Americans who depend on this region every day without even realizing it. Thank you for being stewards of America's prairie for all of us. Take a moment to find out how conservation pays. Visit conservationpays.org.
The best words to hear at the TSA security checkpoint? You're good to go. So check before you jet. Avoid delays at TSA security checkpoints by making sure you have an acceptable form of ID. That means a real ID, passport, or other acceptable forms of identification.
Visit tsa.gov/ID to check the full list of acceptable IDs. Avoid travel delays by checking ID requirements, and you're good to go.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few scattered rain showers possible late today. Otherwise, partial sunshine develops with a high in the mid-50s. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. Then for tonight, a chance for rain with cloudy skies, a low near 40. By Friday, sunshine, a high 51 degrees. Saturday, mostly sunny, high of 53. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 39.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You're listening to Choose Views with Richard Chu. Take it away, Richard.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us. I'm not portraying, I want to deal with the text that I got. I'm not portraying a defeatist attitude. In fact, didn't I say, Henry, we have to work really hard now, harder. This affects all of us. Gerrymandering affects all of us. I don't care what anybody has to say. You should know better than that, Texas, who just sent me this. So I'm just going to deal with that. We are not taking a defeatist attitude. We are taking one of fighting. I use those words a bunch of times in that context. It means we have to fight harder right now. All of this affects all of us, period. You should know better. All right. The president of a bipartisan committee for a responsible federal budget is with us this morning to talk about some of the things that we are all dealing with. And that is what I said earlier in the show about the cost of things. I made the comparison of, protecting the White House Correspondents' Dinner could have been handled differently by just buying out the hotel. It would have cost less money than a Trump trip to Scotland for golf. And the list goes on. But with us this morning is Maya MacGuineas, who is the president of the Bipartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Good morning, Maya, and welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
You too. So, listen, I'm going to dive right in because you've got so much information. We could talk for hours. We could literally talk for hours because of the amount of work that you guys do at the committee. Take a moment and share with our audience a little bit of the who, what, and why of the committee and the work that you do and a little bit about yourself, if you will.
Good place to start. So the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget has been around for decades, in fact. It is a truly bipartisan organization, which is something that there are fewer and fewer of these days, given how political our environment is. And the purpose and the ensuing mission of this organization is to focus on fiscal responsibility, which basically means there are many times when you want to borrow. COVID was a time to borrow. The Great Recession was a time to borrow. But there are many times that we borrow as a nation purely because we want to do a lot of government spending, but we don't want to pay for it. And that means we borrow from the future. And so this has many, many negative effects. I'll go into them. But the purpose of the organization is to push back without any political preferences for how we do these things, but to talk about the importance of being fiscally responsible for the sake of the economy, our national security, the future stability of the country, so that we aren't starting to build up a dangerous level of debt, which is where we are now. I myself am a diehard political independent. I worked in policy for many years, and then the more I read about the budget deficit, the more I became truly concerned about it and basically its effect on the next generation. And so have devoted my career to working on this issue. Again, I can't really stress the bipartisan part enough because I think that's such a critical piece of it. And the work that we do focuses on explaining the policies, putting forth policy options, trying to bring together members on Capitol Hill to understand this issue and pay for the things that they want to do or push for important reforms. And that's who we are.
I love that you made it very clear, diehard, in your not, I won't say political leanings because you put yourself in the middle by design. And I get that because of the fact that you want the data that you want the items that you research and build upon to be viewed from a balanced lens. And then the presentation of it to people to be receivable. So that part I completely get. I think that what happens is we end up having to lean in a direction one way or the other based on outcomes. And, the outcomes sometimes don't match up with what the research is showing those who are in a position to make a decision to do something better. In other words, you present, here's what I think is the problem, how we got here, and then people choose to not go in the direction from, seasoned experts like yourself. And then we keep getting into trouble because we kind of wash, rinse, and repeat on some of the budgetary issues. Let's talk about the 2026 budget. And this is something that you guys have had a tremendous amount of thought on and reporting on it, well, maybe not reporting, but just, presentation of this reconciliation. So talk a little bit about how you see it and from the objective position or the bipartisan position that you have to see it from.
Yes, I'll jump into that. Let me make one point on what you were just talking about, because it is really hard to keep politics out of anything these days. And maybe this helps sort of explain how we see things from a truly nonpartisan view. And I think it's so interesting because I work in an office where we could not be more politically diverse, from the most progressive to the most conservative. And the thing that we're united on is believing that the way you run your budget should not be by borrowing tens of trillions of dollars. But one of the first meetings I had when I took over this job was with a Democratic congressman, and he said, Maya, I am as fiscally responsible as they get, meaning I am a big government spender, and I want to pay for what we spend. And I think that sort of goes to the point. Sometimes when people think about fiscal responsibility, they think, oh, this means it leans left or it means right. But it really means there's no one right size of government. There's no right programs. We all disagree on what we want the government to do. But if something is important enough to do, it's important enough to pay for. And that's kind of, again, except when the economy needs borrowing. And there are times when there's good debt, there's times when there's bad debt. But I think it's useful to start at first principles to know that that's kind of what guides our decision-making.
Got it.
On the current budget. The current budget is two things. Well, a number of things. Many months late. We are now getting in the habit. The entire budget process is no longer working as supposed to. The president is supposed to offer their budget in early February.
Right.
This budget came out late, and it came out pretty empty, meaning it's missing all the major numbers, like what the deficits would actually be. That's because the purpose of the budget that we're seeing both from the president and now what just came out of the Senate is not actually to lay out a statement of the country's priorities. What do we want to spend money on? How do we want to spend it? The important strategic purposes of a budget. But instead, it's to unlock this very powerful tool, reconciliation. And reconciliation is when you can move something through the Senate with only 50 votes instead of normally being vulnerable to the filibuster. And so in this budget, what we're seeing is that there is an intention to borrow $70 billion to spend more money on certain areas of the budget, funding immigration and customs enforcement and border security operations. And so there's funding for the very small sliver of the budget that wasn't able to get done through the appropriations process. And that's the purpose of this one reconciliation bill. It would likely be about $70 billion, and that would not be paid for. So that would add to our national borrowing.
And this is where I think people get caught up in trying to see where they land when it comes to not being partisan or being left or right, but just looking at the logic of it in terms of who's making the decisions and trying to get things passed. Right now, there's no getting around this, irrespective of one being bipartisan or left-leaning or right-leaning. The folks that are in charge of the three parts of our government, and depending on how you look at it, are not of both parties that are in charge of the decisions that are going to get things brought to vote and then voted on and then potentially passed. And so this is where I think sometimes I think everyday folks get concerned because what the Republicans are putting forward and the president's bill, which are budgeted, which is very, very light on details and hard to pay for, they're not a Democratic president right now. It's a Republican president, and it's a Republican House and Republican Senate, who then may force through things, to your point, that don't make any sense because we can't pay for them. So this is where I think a lot of people kind of need the help of the MacGuineases of the world to say, okay, how do we stop that from happening and kind of doing the same thing over and over again?
Yeah. No, you made that point, and you're so right. Like, this is just now a well-worn habit. Come up with the things you want to do, and it's either new spending or big tax cuts, but don't offset those costs. And when you offset the cost of something, you can either do it through higher taxes or lower spending, or you can grow the economy, which is one of the myths. Usually people claim huge heroic levels of growth. Growth is always great, but it's never going to be big enough to pay for things. There is a very simple way to require this, and it's actually a law, which is called pay-as-you-go. Meaning that if you create new mandatory spending programs or you cut taxes, and this is so important because there was this huge unpaid for tax cut last year, you are supposed to offset those costs, pay for them either through other taxes or spending reductions. If you don't, it goes on something called the pay-go scorecard. I know this seems boring, but it's pretty important. And then there are supposed to be automatic reductions in the federal budget. Every single year, this pay-go scorecard gets run up, and Congress votes to waive it. So we were supposed to have a sequester resulting from those huge tax cuts, but members of both parties voted to erase that sequester, and nobody even knew it happened. There was probably not one article in the newspaper about this. So if we just started by following the pay-as-you-go requirements, that would change things dramatically. There are a number of other ideas out there. At this point, I think we should be looking at actually every time you do a new government program or a tax cut, you should actually include a down payment on deficit reduction, so more than offset it. But there's a lot of energy right now on at least coming up with a deficit target. When we put in place budgets, there's unlimited amounts of borrowing. Right now, we borrow about $2 trillion a year, and we're about to hit the record level of national debt in this country in the next few years, higher than it was right after World War II. I think we need to pick at least a reasonable deficit target. And one thing where there is bipartisan support is, could we get our budget deficits from 6% of GDP where they are today to about 3% over the next decade? That's only cutting them in half. That's not even a balanced budget. That's out of reach, unfortunately. So coming up with some kind of budget rules might be the helpful first step to change that kind of unholy alliance or pattern that we're in right now of borrowing for everything, with both parties engaged in that.
So here's where I have not pushback, but here's where I have to say this, because I talk about this a lot, being one that spent years as a financial advisor. Here's the thing that I've always said about cutting. You can cut to a certain point, and then you cut into the muscle. You can trim the fat all day long. I use a kind of a sports analogy to some extent. You trim too much fat and you cut into the muscle. And when you in my way of looking at it financially, this is oversimplification. The muscle is revenue. The muscle is income. And from a government standpoint, a municipality standpoint, revenue is our taxes, unless there are programs that are designed. But in our way of operating, it's taxes. And we keep driving taxes down for the wrong folks in our economy on all levels in all states. So we could say that that's, that the left and the right contributed to that. But ultimately, and we see this each time we have an administration that says we're going to, I'm sorry, not an administration, but a Congress that forces through bills like the big ugly bill from last summer, that is a tax break that reduces revenues for our country and puts the weight of that on everyday citizens. And then you have the other side, which was an increase in spending, i.e. borrowing, that's, again, on the shoulders of the citizenry. And this is where I struggle, and I don't have a hard time saying it, but I struggle because that's not a both sides do it thing. It's just not. So how do we...
interesting. So, okay, so here's so absolutely, I'm right there with you on the tax cuts. These tax cuts were a gargantuan multi-trillion-dollar debt increase that are leaving the country in bad fiscal shape. And it was really reckless that we passed them. But what I'll point out is two things. We've also so we were talking about reconciliation earlier, and that's been unlocked by Republicans here. But Democrats have also used reconciliation. They used it to pass the Inflation Reduction Act or the ACA, things that at the time they were talking about paying for, which we were applauding, but then in practice didn't end up being paid for in the same ways that they were promised to be. And if you look at we had budget surpluses in the early 2000s, first couple of years.
Right.
And if you look at the deterioration, how do we get from there to here, from surpluses to 6% budget deficits? About 1/3 of that comes from tax cuts. 1/3 of it comes from spending increases, and 1/3 of it comes from responses to emergencies, responses which I would say are warranted. So actually, if you look at the fiscal deterioration, the legislation that's been passed is pretty much equal between tax cuts and spending increases. And that's why I think the stories that both sides look at, they see different narratives on what you just said. Both are true. If we had not cut taxes since we had budget surpluses, our deficits would be half of what they are, closer to non-existent. If we had not increased spending and let the automatic growth in our budget go, our debt would be close to paid off at this point. So both sides of the budget have fed into the fiscal problems we have. But in the political arena, I notice usually each side kind of talks about the one the other side has done with a little bit less of looking in the mirror of how they've contributed. Yeah. There's a lot of fiscal irresponsibility to go around, I'm afraid, and that's why it's harder to dig out of.
That I understand. Let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. And now AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu, and we are talking with the president of the Bipartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, Maya MacGuineas. We'll be right back.
This is a WCPT moment in labor. In the 1830s in Lowell, Massachusetts, during the rise of the textile industry, factories were hiring large groups of women ranging in ages 18 to 35 to work at their mills. The workdays were 13 hours long and had poor working conditions. By 1834, the textile market was sluggish. In response, the workers' wages were reduced by 12.5%. One of the workers, Julia Wilson, tried to organize the women to get their wages back, only to be terminated abruptly. Wilson signaled the women to strike or turn out. Over 800 women marched and signed a petition saying we will not go back into the mills to work unless our wages are continued. Ultimately, the strike failed, but they learned from their mistake and successfully battled back a rent increase on their boarding houses 2 years later. By January 1845, about a dozen of the Lowell female textile workers came together to form the Lowell Female Labor Reform Association. This would become the first organized union of women workers in American history. This has been a WCPT Moment in Labor. We're working for your rights.
Every day, 70,000 puppies or kittens are born in the U.S. Cute, right? Well, what's not cute is that half of all litters are accidents. And when a kitten has a litter of oopsies and a puppy has a litter of uh-ohs, pretty soon you have thousands and thousands of OMGs. And that leads to millions of pets being killed in shelters each year. But if 80% of people with pets say they believe in spaying and neutering, then what gives? Turns out that those sweet little fuzzballs can get pregnant sooner than you think. A lot sooner. But here's the good news. You can stop the accident before it happens. You just have to remember one number, 4, as in 4 months. When you bring home Maggie or Ruby or Puddles or Clyde, get them fixed at 4 months old. It can be old enough to get pregnant, and it's definitely young enough to make a difference. Prevent more. Fix at month 4. Visit fixat4.com for more information. Brought to you by Best Friends Animal Society.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
We may be waking up, but we're still engaged. It's Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. In case you're just joining us, I'm Richard Chew. This is Choose Views, and we are talking with Maya MacGuineas, who is the president of the Bipartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Maya, thanks for being with us, and there's so much more to talk about, and this is why I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to put my hat out there and say we got to have you back on the show because there's so much to cover, and so many people would want to hear more from you. You were, I don't know what other words to use other than this, you were kind of attacked by Scott Bessent when you, I mean, I was like, what? What? She should be I love it when just walk with me for a second, Maya. I love it when men say something about a woman like she should be ashamed. No, Scott Bessent, you should be ashamed for saying that, one. But two, he was flat out wrong. So I'm going to take a very partisan position on this. He was flat out wrong politically and in terms of the raw data. Talk about what happened there. And this is around tariffs, you guys. So, Maya, I hand the baton back to you.
Okay. I wouldn't normally laugh if I found out that a Secretary of Treasury was criticizing me, but it was kind of a ridiculous, preposterous situation. I was actually on a train to New York to visit my daughter, and I start getting all these texts saying Secretary Bessent is on a Sunday morning talk show criticizing you, and I was like, that cannot be right. We had put out a release saying all of these tariffs that have been found illegal by the Supreme Court were going to generate trillions of dollars of revenue. This was a good fiscal thing. This was, in fact, the thing we've been most positive about the administration for fiscally because it was generating trillions of dollars. If we lose that money, which we're going to, we were saying we need to figure out a way to replace it with other revenue. Something the Treasury Secretary and the administration, in fact, had said already on their own. So we put out a press release saying that. And he was asked about it on a Sunday morning talk show and just started ad hominem attacks, which is something I wish we could remove from politics completely, but against me and only because it was sort of silly, we should call them the Committee for an Irresponsible Federal Budget. And I was like, is that really how we have the public discourse these days? But he had punched backwards, right? And so we were saying what the administration has done with generating tariff revenue is good for the budget deficit. We're losing it because they're illegal. We need to find a replacement revenue stream something they, in fact, had agreed with. So I'm used to being criticized by both sides, but that one just came out of left field.
Yeah, and he was flat out wrong. The revenue is the key. I've said this for the longest time. The revenue, we increase our revenue, local, state, and federal. Then the conversation around taxes and debt become lesser, not less important, but lesser. And debt's not a bad thing. You said it yourself. Good debt provides us with access to capital, and it used in a proper way that grows the entity, whether it be a social organization, a hospital, whether it be, how we operate within our governments, state, local, and federal. So the thing that I think a lot of people are just frustrated with is the mounting debt when we are disproportionately out of alignment with our taxes.
Absolutely.
That's where everyday people, I think most Americans, if you were to ask them this question, and I've talked to a number, are you okay with the debt? They'll say, yeah, I am, if the debt's being used in a proper way. Are you okay with the disproportionate taxes and tax guidelines? Not everybody, but most people will probably say no, because it eats into their revenue, their personal income.
I mean, there's two big issues here, which is one, are we borrowing too much? And I think anybody who says, oh, my gosh, our debt is 100% of GDP, that's a milestone we're hitting this week. 100% of GDP, we're borrowing $2 trillion a year. We pay $1 trillion a year in interest payments, more than we pay on all spending for children at the federal level. Most people would say that debt's too high. Then when you say, how are we spending the money, a lot of people look at our federal budget and say, well, this is not what I would support. 2% on education, $6 per senior on every one for children. There are a lot of priorities people would say, I'm not sure if that makes sense. Where we run into trouble for us, because most people will say we do worry about the debt, but when we lay out the real ways you're going to fix it, none of them are easy. We're in a world of free lunch politics where politicians promise us everything in the star and the moon and unicorns, and you never have to pay for them. And the truth is, if we want to fix our fiscal situation, and the reason to do so is these big debt levels slow our economic growth. Interest payments squeezes out room in the federal budget. It leaves us weaker from a national security perspective, and it's a bill we're passing on to our kids, who frankly are not inheriting a terrifically stable situation as it is. So if we want to fix this problem, we are going to have to raise taxes and reduce spending. And the problem is so big, we're going to have to do both. And I can say that because I'm not a politician. But as soon as you get real about the solutions, that's where you tend to lose people, because they're hard. And the reason they're hard is because we have been doing our budget by credit card for many years now, and that's left us with a huge amount of bills. We're going to have to figure it out, and it's not going to be easy, but it is doable, and the payoff for the long-term health and strength of the country is immense. And the downside, if we don't do it, is very concerning. It will leave us vulnerable in many, many ways, and really leave the next generation in trouble.
And I think we already are there in terms of the vulnerability. And I think that I've been trying for a long time, Maya, to say we have to take this the right way. We have to be more. How do I want to say this? It's okay for us to say to take care of our future generations, but how about let's take care of us right now too? Because you're going to probably live another 30 years with good health. I'm going to live another 30 years. I'd like that to be a pretty good period of time, and not just be, and that's not meant to be selfish, but it's about let's take care of the problem right now. Because if we keep on that path, I think that's actually better than saying that we're protecting the future. The future is right now because of what you said and how long we've waited to take control of these two or three primary issues. So,
well, can I push back just a little bit on that? Because
absolutely.
I agree that and I think you're talking about priorities. I think the priorities, and particularly talking about caring for vulnerable people. Like, there are people who are really suffering right now, and it's incredibly important that we address those problems. But my point would be, let's not address them by leaving more in trillions. We already have tens of trillions of dollars of debt, record levels. I don't think we should ask the fix to be paid for by the future when we should be paying for it ourselves. We need to be able to pay for the government we want. There are a lot of things the government should do, and there are a lot of ways that we can finance it. But I think asking, I don't know if you have kids, but asking your kids to pay for it doesn't strike me as the fairest option, given all the different ways we could finance the things we do want to do. So I don't think our well-being at the expense of the future is part of the American dream. I think it's leaving the economy better off for the next generation while we take care of ourselves by being smart in how we budget.
I think we're saying the same thing. We just said it in different sequence. Yeah. So there's I don't need to push back on that. We're saying the same thing. Take care of things right now and take care of things for the future. But let's do it in a way where the future isn't paying for our largesse today. So we're saying the same thing. Maya, I said we're going to have you back. So look at your calendar, because once we get through these next couple of weeks, we will talk about getting you back on the show. Maya MacGuineas, who is the president of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. It's been great having you with us. I look forward to having you back. We're going to talk about Social Security. We're going to talk about lessons from the lantern and some other things that you've been a voice in. It's great to have you with us. How can folks find you real quick?
We are at CRFB, Committee for Responsible Federal Budget.org, and we put out a lot of impartial, credible budget material. I hope people will read it. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed the discussion.
All right, Maya, we'll talk to you soon. Stay well. Bye now.
You too.
Quick break, guys. 773-763-9270 is the number. This is Richard Chu, Chu's Views, AM 820 here in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, as well as our good friends at AM 950 in Minnesota, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Save big money on everything for your next project when you shop at Menards. Menards has a huge selection of bagged concrete and mortar mixes. Great for any project. Whether you're pouring a walkway, a concrete slab, or setting a post. View our entire selection of concrete mixes and supplies in store and on Menards.com. Plus, check out the weekly flyer for more great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.
As a veteran, you get a lot of advice, but wisdom's harder to come by. A lot of people imagine themselves in our shoes without understanding the weight on our shoulders. The truth is, few can understand the pressure of finding your own way after serving in the military. But few isn't none. Steady yourself. You're not alone. You've got support. Learn more at maketheconnection.net.
Amazon Business. Discover smart business buying, where unmatched selection meets AI-driven tools to simplify complex processes, so you can focus on what matters most. Learn more at AmazonBusiness.com.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few scattered rain showers possible late today. Otherwise, partial sunshine develops with a high in the mid-50s. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. Then for tonight, a chance for rain with cloudy skies, a low near 40. By Friday, sunshine, a high 51 degrees. Saturday, mostly sunny, high of 53. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 39.
Stephanie Miller here. I am shooting the proverbial poop with guess who? The tummy whisperer. Yep, Renee Barish of Digestive Health Solutions. Renee, there's lots of confusion about food and diet these days. What brings people to you, and how do you help them sort it out?
Great question. People come to me with a garden variety of digestive issues, including bloating, constipation, diarrhea, and heartburn. But the fun doesn't stop there. So many people bypass these symptoms and exhibit skin conditions, low energy, and poor sleep.
Okay, then what?
Well, I provide expert navigation with diet as well as sensitive testing for your digestion and microbiome. These tests provide clear data about what's happening in your body. And now with this info, I create a go-forward plan to help you feel better.
That's great. Thanks.
Thank you, Mama.
You can talk to Renee at 847-207-2034 or visit thetummywhisperer.com. That's 847-207-2034. Just ask for Renee. 847-207-2034.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
No fake news here. It's Choose Views with Richard Chew.
I, too, remember that night in 2022, a Friday night in July, where our Republican majority at the time decided, why shouldn't the government go to the doctor's office with all of Pennsylvania's women? Why shouldn't the whole state legislature join women at every doctor's visit? And I can also remember standing up, letting all of our colleagues know that when you are at your doctor's office, there's one extra chair. There's not 253. And as a result, not only were we able to win a Democratic majority that November, but we have made sure, as Speaker, I've made sure every day that not one abortion care ban will come to the floor of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives.
Okay, so that's not our guest, but that comes from Pennsylvania's Supreme, a conversation around the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and the House Speaker, Representative McClinton, Democrat from Philadelphia, talking about what should not be happening when it comes to politicians and their interaction with their patient, and the doctor's interaction with their patients. With us this morning are two folks that can lean into this from a couple of different approaches. They've both been on our show before, here in studio and by phone and Zoom. Dr. Anthony Douglas is joining us by Zoom this morning. He is a trauma surgeon at the University of Chicago Hospital and the lead organizer of the RIFL Act, which is also known as the RIFL Act here in Illinois. And Dr. Thomas Fisher, who is with us in studio. He's an attending emergency medicine physician at the University of Chicago Hospital and a former candidate for Congress in the 8th District. Welcome to you both.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be back with you, Richard.
Thank you. Dr. Douglas, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Richard. Excited to be back.
Absolutely. I was, when Dr. Fisher arrived, I said, do you guys know each other? He just looked at me like, Richard, come on, man. What do you think? We both deal with a similar issue, but from sometimes a different vantage point. One of the things that Dr. Fisher shared with me, Dr. Douglas, is what goes on in a trauma center and what he's had to deal with. And the irony behind that is, in many cases, it's from one of the things that you fight so doggone hard to strengthen it. That's our gun legislation in Illinois. So it's great to have both of you with us this morning. In the previous segment, I was talking with Maya MacGuineas, you may have heard, who is the president of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. And you guys are impacted by budgeting on a federal level and then here, obviously, in the state of Illinois. So let's start with Dr. Douglas, since you're on camera. I mean, you're on Zoom. How do you view what's happening now with our federal budget and how it impacts the work that you do when it comes to the RIFL Act?
Well, yeah, I think it's a great example, Richard, of when you're not at the table, you're on the menu, right? And for too long, decisions that impact healthcare in this country have been made without the input of experts like public health professionals and physicians. And when those decisions are being made without our input, there are downstream consequences that people sometimes may intended or did not intend to happen. And so that's what, today, and I know Dr. Fisher will touch on this, but that's what concerns me the most about our current, the direction our current healthcare system is going, because the changes with the budget in HR 1 were made in the name of, affordability and decreasing healthcare spending, but in reality, only increase our debt and what we're spending in terms of healthcare resources. And so I think, whether it's gun legislation, healthcare legislation, all of these, what I like to tell people is the ailments that occur in society ultimately manifest in the hospital. And what we're failing in policy-wise down in Springfield or DC will eventually come into the room where Dr. Fisher greets patients in the ER every day.
Dr. Fisher, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everything Dr. Douglas shared. I think that, our our documents, our budgets, our policies, our moral documents, and reflect the values of society. And right now, what they're reflecting is a winner-take-all perspective, that a handful of people are consolidating wealth in their pockets. We have defense contracts worth, billions and trillions, but we don't have money for healthcare. And what I see in the emergency department is not just the lack of health insurance, and we're seeing big cuts to Medicaid that are coming online now and will get even worse in 27. The Republicans knew that this was historically unpopular and tried to backdate them until after the midterm so they wouldn't experience the full brunt of public sentiment when people realize how many of the things that they need are being taken away from them. But even in light of that, we're seeing cuts today. I am on the board of a medical center in Los Angeles. We've already had to close a clinic as we start to prepare for the cuts that are coming down the road. But the things that come to me in the emergency department are really not about health insurance. They're fundamentally about poverty, segregation, hunger, housing. When we don't have a budget that is focused on the bare basics that we need in order to flourish, I see them in the emergency department in the forms of people who are unhoused and cold in the winter, people who are hungry and can't take food don't have the food they need with their medicine. But that is only going to accelerate. And what was interesting, I had the privilege of listening to some of the last segment. When you have this budget deficit and we're spending money, we've got a war going on in Iran that is sucking up billions of dollars with no clear objectives, but we don't have money for SNAP benefits.
Yeah. Dr. Douglas, you both of you guys, you sit on various boards and you're part of, you do a number of things. Obviously, the practitioner part of your work is critically important.
Yeah.
But let's talk about, and we're going to open up the lines because I know that some folks that are listening to the show may want to ask you guys some questions on a number of topics that are, we'll keep it in the fairway in terms of what we're talking about today. We won't talk about what's going on with the Bears Stadium, but we'll talk about. We could.
That's budget.
That's budget. Well, yeah. You know what? I said that flippantly, but you're absolutely right. So thanks for that correction. So we're going to open up the line so that we can take some calls if people want to ask you guys some more specific questions. You're practitioners and you sit on boards, and talk a little bit about the experiences of sitting on the boards and getting data and information from people that you work with on those boards and then the people that they serve, because one of the big concerns or questions these days is that the people that are leading aren't listening to the people that would potentially be not their followers, but people that would follow what their message is, whether it be in politics or in business or in medicine or in education, and the list goes on. What is it for you guys to be on those boards? What is it like to get that information and then try to use it to make some good decisions with what you're responsible for?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Dr. Fisher. Yeah.
If I can just really briefly start, one of the biggest challenges I have is not being one of these folks who's out of touch. I'm in the emergency department taking care of people on their worst days. I have an unfiltered perspective on who comes in because rich and poor, young and old come in. But I only see them for a brief moment, right? I also spend a lot of time with people who are like me, other doctors, nurses, people who are not check to check. I recently ran for Congress in the 7th Congressional District. I did not win, but I did succeed in a couple of ways. One is I had a chance to listen to more people on a day-to-day basis and understand how many folks, even before they fall to the bottom and end up in my emergency department, are living check to check. Are worried about their job, worried about their next meal, worried about their family members. That isn't just like this small sliver. And it's not just poor folks. That goes way up into the middle class, people who know that they're one step away. It is easy to end up on these boards for me, even as somebody who is spending time on the front lines, to forget what's at stake. To forget that these decisions that we're making about healthcare, that we're making about our organizations, have meaningful implications for not just that organization and its employees, some of whom are in this check-to-check community, but also in the services that are being delivered. I think it is deeply important to get out of that, like that sphere of just other educated, smart, hardworking people who are wonderful. Don't get me wrong. That's me, right? That's us.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
But also, like, really, really keeping a pulse on who is really the majority of Americans.
Right. Yeah.
And what are our, like, not just, it's not them, what are our concerns?
Right.
How do we create a cohesive society that then is reflected in the budgetary documents, in the mission of these healthcare institutions, and ultimately, you know, like your previous guest said, in the federal government.
Yeah, without a doubt. Dr. Douglas, what are your thoughts there in terms of working on as a practitioner and doing the day-to-day important work as a doctor, and then, you know, the work of being on boards and what you're learning there, what you're taking away from those that work as well?
Yeah. I mean, I think Dr. Fisher hit it on the head, and I mean, he was spot on. You know, I think one of my biggest frustrations working on boards and being a practitioner is just the lack of cross collaboration and the lack of recognizing our collective power. And I think if anything, if we're learning anything during this current administration, is that we have to come together. We have to strategize, and we have to have a plan, right? And I think a lot of times when you sit on boards like Dr. Fisher and multiple boards, you know, there's a lot of lanes. This is our lane. We don't cross over into this lane. You know, we're a gun violence prevention group. That's all we do. We're a community violence intervention group. We focus on community violence intervention, right? But I think I use that example, obviously, because that's the space that I'm currently in, but that is happening, you know, in multiple sectors, whether it's, you know, fighting for equity in healthcare access, or fighting for access to food and SNAP benefits. Like, there's so many great organizations that are fighting the fight and doing the work, but we are so much stronger when we recognize our collective power and come together and really just strategize on, you know, what is our 5-year plan? What is our 10-year plan? And how can we work together to achieve a better future in a number of different ways and in all of these topics?
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more in depth about budgeting and some comparative numbers as it relates to the federal budget and then where we are. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and our good friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We're talking with Dr. Squared, not that they're square, Anthony Douglas, and Dr. Thomas Fisher. We'll be right back.
In 1776, we defied a corrupt king, and the America we love was born from that defiance. Now it's time to do it again. America is in crisis, but patriots across the country are standing up to save her for ourselves and our posterity. Show your support with the No King's lapel pin, a 1-inch by 1-inch standard American flag lapel pin embedded with our No King symbol. So much better than that tacky red hat. It's a subtle but powerful way to say you've had enough of wannabe dictators and you're doing something about it. Every day, keep our movement going by wearing this pin that clearly says what freedom-loving Americans are thinking. There are no kings in America, and there never will be. Go to store.politicalvoicesnetwork.com. That's store.politicalvoicesnetwork.com. Get your No Kings lapel pin now.
WCPT 820 listeners, it's time for some girls news. As AI integrates into the workforce, it is creating a digital glass ceiling that heavily impacts women. In high-income countries, 9.6% of jobs held by women are at a high risk of automation by AI, compared to only 3.5% of the jobs that are held by men. Of the 6.1 million employees that would have the hardest time adapting to AI-related job loss, 86% are women. Despite advancement, women hold just 26% of AI-related jobs globally, and 15% are in leadership positions. AI hiring tools and systems themselves are trained on male data, meaning they are more likely to recommend men for higher paying jobs. WCPT 820 listeners, I'm Whitney Rydell, and this is WCPT 820's Girls News.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Don't hit that snooze button. It's time for Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show, 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew, and this is Choose Views. And we are talking with Dr. Anthony Douglas and Dr. Thomas Fisher, both physicians here in Chicago. Chicago guys, we love it that way.
That's right.
We're built differently. I don't care what anybody says. We're built differently because we have to be, all of us here in Chicago. Those who were born and raised and those who came here and made it their home. But Maya MacGuineas earlier was talking about the need for more responsibility when it comes to budgeting on a federal level, because that's really her purview. And I look at the things that happen from the federal government right now, and we all are. And the comparative numbers that I've been making are not astonishing. They're just like off the charts craziness as it relates to paying for things. And I said this earlier in the show. There's just some quick numbers about the money that's being spent on this war in Iran. According to the assistant to the Assistant Secretary of Defense, Jules Hurst, he said it was $25 billion at the end of March. So April is still, so that's 6 weeks of the war. So we can just do the math, reverse engineer the numbers and say we know it's more than that.
Yeah.
All right. So let's push it toward, $40 billion or even 30. The math on this, and you guys have seen various numbers from this, and you both deal in the navigation of Medicare and Medicaid. That number, for reference, would cover 3.1 million people for a whole year, the $25 billion, or provide school lunches for 29.6 million children, or house 3.1 million people in Section 8 housing. Why that's relevant to our conversation is it's the federal budget is then part of the trickle down to our state budget. You guys deal with, you said this earlier, Dr. Fisher, that how if we take a lot of things off the table, one thing that stays on the table that affects what both of you do is poverty. Mm-hmm. I've been of the belief that a lot of what happens when it comes to gun violence and other forms of violence oftentimes are tied to poverty. You guys see it from a couple of different angles. So, Dr. Douglas, talk about this, the numbers I just gave, and how you look at poverty, how you look at this misappropriation or wrong budgeting or wrong spending on things, and then how it impacts the day-to-day work that you do as a physician.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back again to what I said earlier, Richard, the ailments in society and our failures in policy or where we're putting money ultimately manifest in the hospital. And the research and the data is clear about what drives gun violence is desperation. The desperation that exists in communities is the biggest driver of gun violence. When we look at the AI can predict where gun violence will happen in the next 7 years, and the factors that it uses is income percentile, third grade test scores, parents with incarceration history, and proximity to vacant housing, right? Which is all a sign of one thing, right? It's a sign of a desperation and a disinvestment that exists in communities that allows gun violence to thrive. And, we talk about gun violence as a minority issue, but when you actually control for all of those factors, ethnicity is not a factor in predicting gun violence.
Come on. Wait a minute. No. Everybody on the planet's going to say you're a damn liar. How is he a doctor? He doesn't know what he's talking about. How dare he say that it? Help us out, Doc.
Yeah. When you look at all of these factors, right, and you nullify them, you make them all even, and then you just look at race and ethnicity to see, is it a predictor of gun violence? It fails. It is not statistically related to likelihood of violence, which is a clear indication that this is not a people problem. It's a condition problem. It's a condition that we subjugate people to live in that allows gun violence to breed. And so to get back to the original, the point that you made, Richard, about the budget and what is happening in the gutting of funds for basic, what I think is basic human necessities, right? That ultimately manifests in gun violence in our emergency rooms and people with diabetic crises that need, emergent resources and care, people who have advanced diabetic foot wounds and need amputations now and are no longer able to work. It manifests in all types of ways that we see in the hospital and that, Dr. Fisher sees every day in our ER.
Dr. Fisher, you take it from there.
I mean, Dr. Douglas did a magnificent job describing how deprivation leads to violence and how that's not new. Mm-hmm. The challenge is that we've linked race to deprivation in ways that are as old as this country. I mean, the segregation that we see on the South and West Side are policy decisions that have sequestered resources and left many vulnerable to exploitation, where if you can't make your check to check, you've got a payday loan and not an actual access to banking opportunity. When your housing is substandard and you're spending 60% of your income on rent, that leaves you vulnerable to predators who are trying to help you get through but are really just taking resources. It's expensive to be poor. It's expensive to be vulnerable.
That's that hashtag if I ever heard one.
Yeah. And then you get to this point where we have what you began with, were statistics about this war in Iran, where without any debate, no discussion, there was no case made to the public about why we are doing this. We, at the flip of one person's opinion, decide to spend $40 billion, which could go all of the places that you've described. But that's not the extent of the cost to society. How much is gas right now? Gas. My dad, I had a conversation with him last night. He was like, son, I just spent $5.50 a gallon to fill up my tank.
Yeah.
Well, he's retired comfortably. I'm thankful for that. But if you need that car to get to work, which he does not, that $5.50 gas is onerous.
Yes, it is.
That has real impact on your bottom line. If you're driving for Uber and Uber hasn't increased rates yet, or you're a taxi driver and you're trying to make ends meet, or
a delivery, or yeah, right. It's yes.
This isn't everybody's life. Well, why is that high? It's because instead of centering the importance of everyday people in our policies and our decisions, we're doing all this other shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're also seeing electric bills go up. We were talking about this in the past because of data centers for AI, so that we can do searches about, some meaningful things, but also where's the best way to get groceries. I mean, that's $1 million search that's being subsidized by venture capital and our taxpayer dollars using our electric. This is not about people anymore. And so then you see it come into our emergency department when folks who are already vulnerable have had those last tethers to mainstream society get frayed even more because gas is $5.50. And you're like, well, we need to think more about this war in Iran. And it seems disconnected, but it's right here in our lives every day.
Yeah, it is. And that's such a eloquent and real way of looking at it. And part of the beauty of having the two of you on at any time, but certainly together, is you both come at this from a perspective where how do I say this without sounding morbid? The end of oftentimes it passes your hands.
Yeah.
And it sometimes comes from the beginning being so disconnected to reality in everybody's lives. In other words, you guys get to see folks when they're at, unfortunately, their worst in their lives.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because of their own circumstances or maybe the choices that they made, that they had to make, that weren't the best of choices. And the social argument is we as a country have, when we talk about things that where, we should be doing this or we shouldn't be doing that, what I really believe in my heart is that we've lost our way when it comes to connecting with each other, to know that things should be better and we can make them better. And when it comes to our politicians, our leaders in business and industry and all the rest, we do have to push them harder.
Yeah.
If they're going to be in that position of leadership, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to push them harder to make better decisions. And sometimes I think, and this is where, I kind of take a slightly different route from those who are bipartisan, and I'm not criticizing Maya, but I look at it sometimes and say, sometimes we have to pick a side. Sometimes we do have to say, I stand over here because this is what I believe in for all of us. And although we can debate on to what distance we go in picking a side, I think we have to say that's not good for us. And the budget, federal budget right now, which has a trickle down, as I said earlier, on us on a state level, all states, it's not good for us.
Yeah.
It's not good for the greater part of our society. Guys, we're going to take a quick break. The number again is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chu. This is Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and now AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We're talking with Dr. Anthony Douglas and Dr. Thomas Fisher, and we'll be right back.
This is Tony Moret. I'm an estate planning attorney who drafts living trusts and wills for my clients. You have probably heard my ads here on WCPT for the last few years. Your fellow listeners, when we have completed their plans, say, I wish I had done this sooner. It wasn't nearly as hard as I thought it would be. We can complete your estate plan within 30 days or less. There are certainly decisions that need to be made, but my 30-plus years of experience will help guide you through this process. There may never be a perfect time to start, but whenever I'm asked when is the best time, my answer is always the same. Now is the best time, while it is on your mind. Being able to tell your family that you have an estate plan in place, that all the details have been taken care of, will be a great relief to both yourself and those you care for the most. Our initial consultation is without charge, and there is no obligation. My phone number is 847-996-0496, and my website is moretlawoffice.com, spelled M-O-R-E-E. I look forward to speaking with you.
Whoa there! Where do you think you two are going? This is a union-only job site.
Hi, we're from ABOC, a leading business and labor union bank founded over 100 years ago in Chicago.
Good to know. We only let union members on this site.
ABOC was founded by labor union members. We have union leaders on our board and union employees to this day.
Okay, you've got my attention.
As you know, labor union banking requires experience and expertise.
Tell me about it.
Hi there. Labor unions get the advantage of our oversight and regulatory experience.
Get to the good part.
Hundreds of labor unions trust ABOC for their banking, including treasury management, investments, and construction loans like this one.
You worked on this job?
We sure did.
Just ask your boss.
Okay, why didn't you say so? Come on in.
Thanks.
Hey, don't forget your hard hats.
Trust ABOC, the bank for labor unions.
Hey, learn more at ABOC.com. ABOC is the brand name for Amalgamated Bank of Chicago. Member, FDIC.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few scattered rain showers possible late today. Otherwise, partial sunshine develops with a high in the mid-50s. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. Then for tonight, a chance for rain with cloudy skies, a low near 40. By Friday, sunshine, a high 51 degrees. Saturday, mostly sunny, high of 53. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 40.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
It's Choose Views, where we read more than just the headline. Now here's your host, Richard Chew.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. In case you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chew. This is Choose Views, and we are talking with Dr. Anthony Douglas, trauma surgeon at the University of Chicago Hospital, and Dr. Thomas Fisher, attending medical physician at where? University of Chicago.
Let's go.
I love and respect these two brothers because they literally are on the front line of fighting for things that we should have or not have in our society. Violence has always been part of humanity.
Yeah.
It's not something that, just popped up a couple of days ago. It's always been there. And depending on what one labels it as or the categories, it's still under the umbrella of violence. And it's there's no city in America, there's no place in the country that doesn't experience it in some way. Dr. Douglas, this has really been, one of the things you've been working hard and championing, and that's the RIFL Act. We had this recent shooting of two Chicago police officers in an extraordinarily strange, weird circumstances. Many of us know what it is here locally, but throughout the country. Dr. Douglas, why don't you talk about it, and then talk about it from the perspective of gun violence and guns on the street, and then Dr. Fisher will chime in as well.
Yeah, Richard. Well, as you alluded to, we had a very tragic shooting of a CPD officer, actually at one of the hospitals that residents do rotations at the University of Chicago up north, at the Endeavor Health System, and a very tragic shooting, and again just highlights a problem that we are failing to address. And my frustration over the weekend, as I tried to contain it, was really just how much longer do we have to read these headlines before we actually make some systemic and real upstream change to this issue. I saw a lot of headlines after the shooting was announced, and there was a lot of calls for reforming policies or passing this bill as a Band-Aid to address this loophole, and addressing electronic monitoring, and addressing cash bail, and all of these things. And it's kind of like looking up at a leaky ceiling and deciding to put duct tape on it, right? Instead of addressing what are some of the actual root causes. And we've already talked a little bit about some of the root causes and what feeds this problem, but also we're not really talking about the access to firearms and those who are profiting from the sales of firearms in our country and in our state. People, I don't know how long we have to go about the approach of like individual by individual, situation by situation, before we actually look at what are the root causes of this issue, who are the actors and stakeholders that are driving it, and how can we hold them accountable. I think we are long overdue for approaches to address who is profiting from gun injury in our country. How are people getting access to these firearms? Because Richard, the truth is, while the young man who committed this crime and ended this our law enforcement officer's life, he was justice impacted and has been in the system for quite some time. So how does he have access to this firearm, right?
Mm-hmm.
How are these firearms so accessible that someone who has been in the system for quite some time has access to these products, right? And so that we live in a country where we are outnumbered by guns. There are almost 620 million guns in our country for about 300 million people, right? And we can point to politicians, we can point to policies, but when are we going to point to the industry that continues to traffic these firearms and make them accessible to our communities?
Yeah, Dr. Fisher.
Yeah, that's the genius of some of the work that Dr. Douglas is doing, is trying to hold to account those who are distributing and producing the weapons that leave our community shredded full of bullets.
Yeah.
That shooting in particular is very curious. Like, I have only a cursory experience. I was not talking to any of the people involved, but there are often guns in the emergency department because the people who come into the emergency department come from the community. I was surprised that this individual who was previously in custody and disclosed had a weapon and that it wasn't found for 2 hours. Like, none of that completely adds up to me. But the case is there was a gun.
Yeah.
That gun was used to kill people needlessly, more senseless loss of life. And I think the fact is, not only is this a blight that comes from, markets that where guns are extremely profitable, but it's also a sign of a broken democracy. Americans, even gun owners, especially gun owners, want gun control. They want there to be sensible laws. They want to ensure that people who have criminal or even justice-involved records don't have ready access. They want to make sure that people who have expressed threats do not get weapons. Americans don't want high caliber weapons and extended magazines and triggers and switch. We don't want these things. Not if our policies were a reflection of what the people want. The fact that these things are still prevalent is a problem, a bigger systemic problem that we've touched on, how it influences our budgets and how it transforms who sits in leadership and how money that enters campaigns help to shape all of these things. If we were to really double down and think about how do we repair our democracy in ways that allow for us to be safer,
yeah,
folks are already there. I mean, what Dr. Douglas is doing is an important and incredible step. Part of it is not only trying to extract the resources from these gun owners, but part of it is also he's doing the work of repairing our democracy, trying to make something popular into the real world.
Yeah, the RIFL Act isn't just. I mean, obviously it's here in Illinois, and the work that's going toward it is here in Illinois. But it should be part of the national conversation. For sure. We're going to press a pause on that for a moment because we've got a person that I think wants to get in on the conversation. Let's go to Cynthia in Denver. Good morning, Cynthia, and welcome to Choose Views.
Hi, I'm listening to you all in Colorado, and I want to thank your guest for being so impassioned, and the clarity of their experience is really moving, and they've educated me a lot because this is exactly what we go through here in Colorado. What I wanted to ask is, do they share their data and their experiences with any governing body that may turn what they know into law, perhaps, maybe?
Well, Dr. Douglas, why don't you take that first because of your work with RIFL?
Yeah, I think, Cynthia, exactly the question you raised, I think, is really what drove myself and Dr. Fisher to run for Congress, and my story of going and getting into the policy spaces, because I think we in academics have done a poor job of translating our research, our findings into action and policy solutions. And I think that, a lot of physicians now that are getting into advocacy, activism, and policy are recognizing that we have to start doing better about translating science into results and real systemic change. And so one of the things, with the RIFL Act that we're working on here in Illinois is doing exactly that. We're taking the data that we are learning from the Trauma Center and at the University of Chicago and using it to innovate policy, to innovate interventions at the community level. And one of those great examples, when we're talking about the RIFL Act, and why manufacturers of firearms should be accountable for the outcomes of their products, is because we've learned that 99% of the firearms that are recovered in crimes were purchased through legal supply chains first. Were purchased at retailers or by pawnbrokers. And so this idea that criminals are getting these mysteriously or stealing them is a fallacy. They're actually getting these firearms through at some point through a legal purchase. And the other data that we've learned, especially through working with the ATF, is that over 50% of the guns that they trace to crimes were sold within 3 years. So we have a really legal supply chain problem that someone is not taking accountability for distribution as well as who they're selling to. And so that kind of data and those things that we are learning from the Trauma Center and from just doing research in our academic institutions is driving real policy efforts here in Illinois.
Dr. Fisher, your response to Cynthia's question.
It's a great question, and I have a lot of ideas about it, but I think that more important than the elected officials is that the people know.
Mm-hmm.
Because what the people know and care about are ultimately what the elected officials will know and care about. So props to you for having us on and for elevating these issues, because it's not just Dr. Douglas and I. Your show is always making sure that people have the information that they need. But it's been a strong frustration of mine that the things that we know in academia or that experts know don't turn into what the people know. Mm-hmm. But we're competing against, cat videos on an algorithm in Instagram, right?
Yeah.
We're competing against Hollywood movies. We're competing against all of these different draws on attention that it requires the elevation, but it's why I wrote a book about the pandemic, because when I'm on the front line watching people turn blue and our public officials are saying it'll just go away, there's no such thing as this virus. Well, I don't want us in 50 years to look back and say, wow, they let 1.2 million people die. Well, they just didn't know better. We did know better.
Yeah.
We just didn't win.
Yeah.
Right? It's the reason I ran for office. Like, are we going to elevate and fight for these issues, even if we don't get to do it in our lifetime? Or are we just going to let it go?
No, that's not
we stand up.
That's not a responsible way.
Yeah.
Cynthia, I appreciate, and I know that Drs. Fisher and Douglas appreciate your call. And you, to Dr. Fisher's point, Cynthia, you are one of the fighters on the ground. Yes. You got to remember that. I'm not saying that you don't remember it, but remember that. And the people in your community there in Colorado, be a champion. Be one of those folks that says, you know what, I'm tired of this and I'm going to do something about it. And I'm going to organize. I'm going to start with one person and then the next and the next. I believe in my heart, Cynthia, that is how we get to then support the type of legislation of the RIFL Act and the type of work that Dr. Fisher does. So Cynthia, stay in the fight. Call us back again. Send us emails and text messages. And, we're here for you, okay?
Thank you so much, and thank you for the education. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Stay safe, and we will hopefully talk to you soon. Call us back.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, I mean, to your point, Dr. Fisher, it's folks like Cynthia who are out there that have concerns. Yeah. And any of our callers from anywhere in the country that have concerns, that want to be, I believe, part of the solution. They want to be in this fight, and whether they be, partisan or not, left or right, they want to be in this fight to win, because I love the way you put it. We don't want to be on the losing end of any of these battles. So we're going to take a quick break, guys. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu, and we'll be right back.
This is WCPT telling you how you can shop blue. Let's take a look at some toy companies that support the Democratic Party. Mattel. In 2024, Mattel gave one gift to a political action committee. And that political action committee supported Democratic policies. Hasbro. Hasbro doesn't give to politics as a company. However, some of their senior leaders and employees do. And in 2024, 85% of their donations went to the Democrat Party. Lego. Lego doesn't give to politics as a company, as they're not even located in the U.S. But some of their senior leaders make donations, and while they are very small, since 2016, 100% of Lego's donations went to Democratic candidates. Funko. Funko doesn't give to politics as a company, but some of their senior leaders and employees do, and they tend to lean more Democrat, with 54% of their donations going to Kamala Harris's campaign in 2024. This has been WCPT telling you how you can shop blue.
Today, 1 in 5 working-age Americans has a mental health condition.
People in all types of jobs and at all levels.
And the key to helping us succeed is a supportive and inclusive workplace.
All of us have a role to play in making that happen.
So what can I do to help?
As a CEO, I can set the tone for supportive culture.
As a manager, I can offer assistance and accommodations.
As a coworker, I can listen and be a source of support to my colleagues.
As someone with a mental health condition, I can ask for what I need to perform my best.
I can offer all employees the supports they need to deliver on the job. For the team
and for the business.
What can I do?
What can I do?
What can I do?
I can remind others
that we all benefit from workplaces that promote good mental health.
Mental health-friendly workplaces are more important than ever.
And all of us have a role to play in promoting them.
Learn more at whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Mike's on, truth's out. This is Chew's Views with Richard Chew.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. In this last segment, we've had obviously Dr. Anthony Douglas and Dr. Thomas Fisher, who are going to become, I'm going to use a little medical term like I know something, our resident experts in the space of the conversations around medical issues, Medicare, Medicaid, trauma, bettering our systems, all the above. They're going to be voices that we're going to be able to have as we go forward, because I respect them so much and appreciate them taking the time. Dr. Fisher said something during the break that's important, and I'm going to make this is going to be a statement about us in Chicago. We love our city. We're prideful of our city. We're proud of our city, and we believe in our city. And oftentimes we take some hits, but then we get a call from someone completely 1,000 miles away that they're dealing with that there.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show that these are issues that are U.S. issues. They could be happening in Bozeman, Montana, the reddest of red in terms of political, or Denver, Colorado, or Chicago, Illinois. These are American issues, y'all. And this is why I keep telling folks that we have to draw the line and take a side and say what's happening is happening to all of us, one way or the other. And when you said earlier, Dr. Fisher, about the economics are going up the scale, it's not just, folks that are considered in the lower economic status. These things are working their way up that economic ladder, and that's where we know we all have to collectively fight together. One of the big issues right now that I know you guys are dealing with, I just don't know to what extent and in what manner, and I'll go to you first, Dr. Douglas, is how you're dealing with technology and AI and digital impact in the medical field, in the medical business. Dr. Douglas, why don't you start us off there real quickly?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a new and evolving technology. And I think, Dr. Fisher and I certainly have both started to see it in medical records, and charting, where AI is being utilized to make documentation more efficient, summarizing charts more efficient. I don't know, I don't know at what cost or what expense, but it is starting to manifest in our charting, which of course, technology is great and is helpful when it makes us more efficient, but also not as great when it makes you more reliant, right? And so it's definitely something to just be, I think, vigilant about. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but just something to be thoughtful about what are the unintended consequences as AI unravels in the healthcare space. I think, we've had a lot of discussions in the healthcare world about to what extent AI will replace physicians, of course. And I think there's a lot of conversations around, specialties like radiology and film reading and having, those experts around the clock in our hospitals and the costs that are associated with paying somebody to do something that you could potentially pay a model to do, right? And even the other week, I saw a letter about AI being utilized to perform surgeries now, and it's not happening. But they're starting to play with models where you feed AI, surgeries, videos, and knowledge about surgeries, and see if it can efficiently perform those operations. And so I think it's an evolving technology. It's something that we need guardrails for, any type of technology that does not have guardrails is subject to have unintended consequences. Of course, we're talking about healthcare, but it has a lot of unintended consequences on society when you start replacing people with AI. And so I think we certainly, there's so many great things it can do, but there's a lot of potential for a lot of bad things if we don't have those guardrails in place.
Yeah, Dr. Fisher.
I'm excited about it to some extent. Like, it's a new tool. I've been practicing long enough to have seen new tools come that have made practice more efficient and better. When I started taking care of patients, we used a paper chart. I mean, I was at the tail end of that, but that slowed things down. You couldn't find information when you needed it. When a patient, you were trying to figure out, well, what was this patient's potassium yesterday? Well, you had to like sort and figure things out. Like, technology makes that stuff better and easier, makes practice safer, more efficient. I think the challenge is there's trillions of dollars of capital investment in AI, and in order to justify that, you have to tell this magnificent, huge story about how it is God and how it is going to take away humans from all of these processes, and therefore you make this massive investment because you won't need people anymore. Well, in the care of other individuals, you will always need people, right? These machines can't show empathy. They can't understand what your health means and why it matters. It won't be able to help you prioritize what's important to an individual, right? And to the extent that we remember that everything from a hammer to the radio have all been innovations and simply tools, AI will be a tool. And if we allow it to do what it can do better than we can do, like remember certain facts and present them to you in the moment that you need them, and not the things that you shouldn't let it do, which include telling you what the right next step ought to be based on the next patient, or pretending like it can step in and provide empathy, I think we will be fine. But part of that is making sure that we remember it is in the service of us and not vice versa. And these marketing ploys don't necessarily present that proposal. There are things that technology will do better than us. I think the other challenge is, as you use technology, some of your own skills atrophy.
Wow.
And anybody who has used Google Maps to get around the city no longer knows landmarks. They're like, well, I don't know where I'm going unless I use this tool.
And it's interesting you said that, and this is going to sound like a criticism. It's not meant to be. I can tell when I'm driving, my wife will back me up on this, and others who've been in the car with me. I can tell when someone is using their phone to navigate getting around, because I can tell the way in which they are hesitant as they're going down the street. And it's like a person who and listen, there's a difference between using a device to tell you where you are and knowing where you are, and then using a device to help you do a better job of that. And I think that that's what you're saying, whether it be driving, whether it be navigating, the operating room, or just dealing with a patient that's come in from a traumatic incident. In that moment, AI can't diagnose quickly by what you see. Your instincts, and I'm not a doctor, but I'm just saying common sense as a person, that's the part that we can never, to your so well stated point, allow to happen. It's a tool.
It's a tool. And when it comes right down to it, doctors are already pretty good at diagnosis.
Hell yeah.
That's not our problem. Our problem is making sure that we follow the 20 steps to ensure that somebody gets the medication that they need at the right time every single time. Like, a computer can do that.
Yeah.
Better than we can, in fact. Remembering a treatment plan that's going to last over many months, like a cancer protocol, or those are the things that we might want to delegate to these tools. Like, I don't think we should be afraid of it. We should just be clear on what it is and what it isn't.
Yeah. As we wrap up, we'll start with you, Dr. Douglas. What are some things that you just want everybody to be paying attention to right now? And you've got a wide path. You got a minute, barely. But just real quick, what are some things you want folks to be paying attention to right now with the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I'll be quick. We have an advocacy day on May 8th. That's Friday of next week, or 8 days from now, for the RIFL Act. We will be convening down in Springfield, Illinois. We have over 300 people registered to come. We're hoping to get to 400 by May 8th. And so if you live in Illinois and you're listening, clear your schedule, bring your kids, bring your grandkids, nieces, nephews, parents, anyone that is able-bodied, and come down to Springfield and advocate for a worthwhile cause that is really, I mean, next Friday will be a historical moment for not only Illinois, but for our country. And we have the chance to make Illinois the first state to reinstate accountability for an industry that has operated too long without liability or responsibility for what their products are creating. So if I had to leave the audience with one thing, it's that.
Dr. Fisher, real quick.
Let me just amplify Dr. Douglas's work on the RIFL Act. I think that's incredibly important. And one thing that we didn't talk about that I think is worth thinking about is unrelated to healthcare. It's the Supreme Court's impact on the Voter Rights Act.
I had it on my list, and we ran out of time. But so, and how that's going to impact you guys in the work that you do. Sorry,
it's going to impact all of us.
All of us. What did I say earlier, Henry? It's not. This is the time. It's not just a black and white issue.
We were one of the issues that I talk about, things like women's health, things like gun violence. These are popular pieces of our democracy, and the Supreme Court took a step at eroding the one person, one vote component of our democratic process. We are retrenching back to something that was post-Reconstruction.
Yeah.
Where we needed the Voters' Rights Act to ensure that black folks were not systematically disenfranchised, and now we are again. Mm-hmm. Children today will have less rights than their grandparents. And until we are thinking large and systemic about this and how things like the way we vote translate into who's on our Supreme Court, which translates into the long generational issues, we're going to continue being mired. So I just don't want to I am just super impressed by, Dr. Douglas is way ahead of where I was at his level of training. I'm proud of him. I'm stand in solidarity with the work he's doing, and also we have large systemic issues that he's contributing to, and we must all remain focused on.
Thank you both for being with us, Dr. Anthony Douglas and Dr. Thomas Fisher, for hanging out with us. Guys, we got to get out of here. Stay tuned for the Stephanie Miller Show, and as I say always, take a deep breath and make your life count. Tomorrow, be with us because Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson will be on the show. We'll see you tomorrow.
I've tried everything to stand out at work. Donuts, a company coffee blend, even dressed as the company mascot for Halloween.
There's an easier way, a ComEd facility assessment. Their engineer gave my company free insights and actions that saved us $732,000 on energy. Easy, right?
Learn how ComEd can help you save at ComEd.com/facility assessment. ComEd, powering lives. Savings will vary based on customers' usage and rate.
Amazon Business. Unlock smart business buying with fast, free delivery on millions of items and practical AI innovations that automate repetitive tasks. Learn more at AmazonBusiness.com.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. The Supreme Court weakened a landmark civil rights era law that has increased minority representation in Congress and elsewhere, striking down a majority black congressional district in Louisiana and opening the door for more redistricting across the country that could aid Republican efforts to control the House. In a 6-3 ruling, the court's conservative majority found that the Louisiana district, represented by Democrat Cleo Fields, relied too heavily on race. Oil futures fell today while Wall Street rose, even as stalled U.S.-Iran talks raised doubts over the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz and a permanent end to the war. U.S. markets ticked higher before the bell, with some of the country's biggest technology companies posting first-quarter earnings this week. In other news, AP correspondent Donna Warder reports on Russia's proposed short ceasefire with Ukraine.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he wants more details about the May 9th ceasefire Russian President Vladimir Putin proposed to President Donald Trump over the phone on Wednesday. The break in attacks would coincide with Russia's Victory Day. Zelensky says he wants to know whether the short-term ceasefire would be a few hours of security for a parade in Moscow or something more. And Ukraine is proposing a longer-term ceasefire. Meanwhile, Russia launched overnight attacks in a central Ukrainian city as well as in the southern port city of Odessa. And Ukraine continued striking industrial facilities inside Russia for a second day in a row. I'm Donna Warder.
Country singer-songwriter David Allan Coe has died at the age of 86. Coe wrote the working-class anthem Take This Job and Shove It, and had hits with You Never Even Called Me By My Name and The Ride. More on this story at apnews.com. This is AP News.
AP Sports, I'm Gethin Coolbaugh. Cade Cunningham had a franchise playoff record 45 points to match 45 from Paolo Banchero and extend the top-seeded Pistons season with a 116-109 Game 5 win over the 8-seeded Magic.
Never die mentality. Just wanted to have a controlled aggression all night. Make sure they felt me.
The Cavaliers rallied for a 125-120 win and a 3-2 series lead over the Raptors. Stanley Cup playoffs, Cam York scored with 2:28 left in overtime to lift the Flyers into the second round with a 1-0 Game 6 win to eliminate the Penguins. The Canadiens claimed a 3-2 edge over the Lightning. Baseball, Matt Olson hit a walk-off 2-run homer in the ninth to give the Braves their MLB-leading 22nd win, 4-3 over the Tigers. And NFL, Cowboys receiver George Pickens signed his $27.3 million franchise tag.
I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few scattered rain showers possible late today. Otherwise, partial sunshine develops with a high in the mid-50s. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. Then for tonight, a chance for rain with cloudy skies, a low near 40. By Friday, sunshine, a high 51 degrees. Saturday, mostly sunny, high of 53. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 43.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Whoa there! Where do you think you two are going? This is a union-only job site.
Hi, we're from ABOC, a leading business and labor union bank founded over 100 years ago in Chicago.
Good to know. We only let union members on this site.
ABOC was founded by labor union members. We have union leaders on our board and union employees to this day.
Okay, you've got my attention.
As you know, labor union banking requires experience and expertise.
Tell me about it.
Hi there. Labor unions get the advantage of our oversight and regulatory experience.
Get to the good part.
Hundreds of labor unions trust ABOC for their banking, including treasury management, investments, and construction loans like this one.
You worked on this job?
We sure did.
Just ask your boss.
Okay, why didn't you say so? Come on in.
Thanks.
Hey, don't forget your hard hats.
Trust ABOC, the bank for labor unions.
Hey, learn more at ABOC.com. ABOC is the brand name for Amalgamated Bank of Chicago. Member, FDIC.
Today, 1 in 5 working-age Americans has a mental health condition.
People in all types of jobs and at all levels.
And the key to helping us succeed is a supportive and inclusive workplace.
All of us have a role to play in making that happen.
So what can I do to help?
As a CEO, I can set the tone for supportive culture.
As a manager, I can offer assistance and accommodations.
As a coworker, I can listen and be a source of support to my colleagues.
As someone with a mental health condition, I can ask for what I need to perform my best.
I can offer all employees the supports they need to deliver on the job. For the team
and for the business.
What can I do?
What can I do?
What can I do?
I can remind others
that we all benefit from workplaces that promote good mental health.
Mental health-friendly workplaces are more important than ever.
And all of us have a role to play in promoting them.
Learn more at whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
WCPT 820.